Ms. Ragini Juneja, a litigation lawyer, legal consultant, and an active voice in the field of institutional safety and rights awareness.
Student safety has been a core issue in a student's life.
What has your experience taught you about how safety truly impacts students, and how do you see the concept of safety evolving today?
The complaint is coming to court on one piece of paper. However, I usually term it as a report card of things. You notice that a student's attendance is dropping. You notice that they're skipping classes. Pressure of everything cannot be put on the law. Know your safety architecture.
So, ma'am, are there any specific laws or legal framework in India designed to protect students within schools? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the DPS MR Podcast series, Future Pathways, where we explore real concerns, real choices, and real challenges faced by students in today's world. Students today are not just focused on academics, but are also navigating real-world concerns like personal safety, digital exposure, emotional well-being, and understanding the systems and laws that exist to protect them. This brings us to today's important thought-provoking theme, enabling the freedom to focus through safe institutions. To guide us through this important conversation, we are deeply honored to have with us Ms. Ragini Juneja, a litigation lawyer, legal consultant, and an active voice in the field of institutional safety and rights awareness. Ma'am's work extends far beyond courtrooms. As an advocate practicing before the Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court, she navigates complex disputes and diverse legal matters across multiple forums, constantly engaging with evolving questions of rights, responsibility, governance, and justice in matters that significantly affect institutions, communities, and individual lives. But alongside her professional journey in litigation, what truly stands out is her larger social vision. Driven by the strong belief that people thrive best in spaces where they feel respected, heard, and secure, Ma'am has consistently used her voice and work to advocate for safer institutional ecosystems, especially for women and children. Her passion for learning, growth, and access to opportunity is closely tied to this vision. She believes that no individual should have to struggle against fear, silence, discomfort, or unsafe environments while simply trying to study, work, or build a future. And that is precisely where her passion project, The Safe Side, finds its foundation. As the founder of The Safe Side, Ma'am is working towards creating safer schools, universities, higher educational institutions, workplaces, and professional spaces through a rights-based and preventive approach. From sensitization sessions on laws such as the POSH Act 2013 and the POCSO Act 2012, to assisting institutions with preventive frameworks, policy implementation, inquiry support, dispute resolution, and capacity building, the Safe Side works towards equipping organizations with the right resources and understanding to handle sensitive situations responsibly and empathetically. At the grassroots level, the initiative also engages with students and young individuals to advance conversations around safety, rights, consent, and institutional responsibility. Ma'am, it is our privilege to have you with us today. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Yumna. Thank you, Avani. Thank you for having me here today. And my profound gratitude goes to Dr. Singh, the principal of DPS MR Road. Actually cares about its students enough to actually have this conversation here, to both of you, to the podcast committee for that matter. And I feel it's very imperative to have such conversations in today's time. Although since times immemorial, such issues have been of much importance to the students. Student safety has been a core issue in a student's life, in a person who goes to an office, a person who goes to a workplace, a youth, in fact, who's going to a university to study. Such issues actually lie at the very center point of things. However, the momentum, it does not get enough momentum. What is actually the relevance of safety? What is how importantly safety has to be placed in a student's life, be it a school student, be it someone who's going to college. For that matter, the gender becomes irrelevant here. For anyone who's going to a workplace, because we need to understand that wherever these people are going, they're going to work, they're going to achieve something. So such conversations are very important, and that's why I am pleased to be here. And thank you for having me today.
So, Ma'am, As a litigation lawyer who works closely with institutions such as schools, colleges, and corporations, your journey has given you a unique perspective. So, how has this exposure shaped your focus on safety, rights, and institutional accountability?
Okay, so as a litigation lawyer, what I'm driven towards is litigation. What actually drives me is being in courts, being in the courtrooms. However, there's a very unique perspective that I could gain from another thing I was very passionate about, which was from a larger point of view. That was social work, that was women and child rights, defending them, advocating for them, creating a voice for them. So that was one part of it. Then the more and more I was actually involved in, be it the Supreme Court, be it the High Court, be it the trial courts, the more closely I was observing these trials, any posh appeal that comes to us, be it any POXO trial that's happening before the magistrate, before the special court, before the we see all of that, and when the moment I'm closely observing this, we see a stark difference that you need to observe from where are things starting. We need to figure out where are the things starting. The moment there's a complaint in court, I used to see that there's a point where the complaint comes to court. The complaint is coming to court on one piece of paper. However, I usually term it as the report card of things. I term the complaint as the report card of things because that is where things have finally come to. That is where things have come to report it. However, a lot of damage that was happened before it, that is where my focus went. I began to look at it from a perspective that what is happening before it, that is coming to a point that this complaint has to come before the court, before the police. What is a woman or a child or someone at the school or someone at a workplace going through mentally, psychologically? What is it that is actually leading them to lodge such a complaint, take such a step for their own safety? So if you see this coming to the court or coming to complaint, even to for that matter an internal committee, that is a matter of redressal. We are coming to a point where we are complaining to seek redressal. So a lot of damage has already been done before the redressal point comes. So I wanted to look at it in a way that why don't we prevent rather than protect later? We should be protecting it. We should be offering redressal, of course. That goes without saying. There's a law for that. However, how about we look at a preventive mechanism to look at things as a cultural shift? Why don't we imbibe safety as a matter of culture within an organization? Now, I'll just clarify at the beginning of things that when I say institution, a school is an institution, a college is an institution, a workplace is an institution. So we are largely under this initiative that I'm running. So we are largely terming all these places where anybody, where I'm stepping to earn, to grow, to soar, to probably achieve the career aspirations I have. You're walking into school to learn, to study, so that you can become something in life. You're walking into college to enhance that. You're walking into a workplace to reap the benefit of it in terms of your growth, in terms of your acumen, in terms of your monetary, in fact, your sustenance also. So I just want that we look at it from a point of view that complaining is one part of it. We have that mechanism. Companies, or for that matter schools or institutions, they're under the obligation to follow that. Yes, we are. However, how about we look at it from a preventive point of view, that we need to prevent this damage from happening. We need to emphasize enough on safety, on psychological safety, emotional safety, physical safety within schools, within learning spaces, within growing spaces, so that when enough importance is given, we move from protection to prevention, so which is a step before protection. So we want that we become preventive of offenses happening. We sensitize people, we create voices, we raise our voices for that. We sensitize ourselves and the people around us. We actually see whether the institutions we are in, we are interacting with, we are engaged with, whether those institutions are compliant or not, because the law exists. However, the cultural shift comes from the people. Not everything can be, put on the pressure of everything cannot be put on the law or for that matter the judiciary. The cultural shift has to come from the people of an institution. So being people of the institution, what you can do best is know your rights, sensitize yourself, sensitize others, and similarly the institution has its own core responsibilities to play. So after being into litigation and for the years I've spent into litigation, I realized that protection is something that I can offer at the courtroom. However, what happens at the boardroom or before? So the boardroom versus the courtroom, that was a difference that it made in my life that, through litigation, I could see the report card of the complaint, that this is where the complaint has come. And what its way forward is, that I know as a lawyer, I would be functioning that way, as per law, as per procedure. That's true. However, what is happening before it, that is something that has to change in the boardroom. So before coming to the courtroom, if we focus on what's happening in the boardroom in terms of the policies, in terms of the culture, in terms of the importance, be it time wise, be it financially, the importance that you're giving in the boardroom to safety of an organization, of an institution, that is what will bring a paradigm shift to what will happen later. So that is it.
That's a very unique perspective. You are the driving force behind the safe side. Could you tell us what it stands for and what kind of impact you aim to create through this initiative?
Thank you for that question, Yumna, because I've been answering that, I believe, ever since we started, because it becomes a little difficult for people to actually navigate where we stand, what we do. To break it down simply, I believe that if litigation is the emergency room for somebody, if litigation is the emergency room, I would say that the safe side is basically preventive healthcare. It's preventive healthcare versus emergency room. When something has gone down, you go to litigation as an emergency room. However, before that, if you have to make cultural shifts, you have to make small modifications, you have to take steps to actually prevent any damage later, to move into the emergency room suddenly, you go to preventive healthcare. So the preventive healthcare is the safe side, where we're telling people about their rights, we're telling institutions that, see, this is your responsibility, this is the right that the people of your institution deserve, they have that right, so you better follow that, and you have that compliance to make. And when I say compliance, I don't just mean check boxes. So we actually imbibe that culture in our institution, where safety is given importance. Students know, students are aware that this is the forum that you need to go to. This is the forum that you need to approach when something goes wrong. And this is how you will be doing it. And while you're doing all this, you are exercising your right. However, you are assured of confidentiality. You are assured of some kind of sympathy there, some kind of empathy there, that you won't be judged, you have a free space, you have the free will and the freedom to actually express yourself before someone. The person that is sitting there is a trusted person by you. You're not getting haunted by, see, I will be judged or this will happen to me as a repercussion. So you're assured of such things. You are given confidentiality, that this will not become the news of the school, that that I will be shamed for this after I raise my voice. So these are some things that actually we tell through the safe side to people. We sensitize people, we sensitize both the sides. We sensitize the students, we sensitize the institution, so that both of them can come to a common ground. The institution can do its part of being compliant, and the students can do their part of being aware, so that they can exercise the common point that is being provided by the law. So that is how, through the safe side, we are functioning. We are working to create voices. We are interacting with remarkable youth here. So youth interaction is something that I really admire, because that is the starting point. Why I say the starting point, you are presently in school. For school, if I was to say, it would matter if you know about the POCSO Act, you know about the NCPCR guidelines, for that matter, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. So their guidelines, or for that matter, the CBSE guidelines, the POCSO Act 2012, the POCSO, thereafter the 2021. So we have those things. But when you will move to college, now the POSH Act comes into play, at least for the staff of the college now, and even for the students for that matter. So now the POSH Act comes into play, the UGC guidelines come into your defense. Then you eventually move to working spaces. So then the POSH Act comes into play for you. So all these things, when they begin early, at a stage where you're going to step into one institution to the other, the forms of the institution will change. Safety is one word that is important to all. But then the vocabulary, that has to change. The vocabulary that I'm using to explain it to you, being students of the senior school, however, versus the vocabulary I'm going to use for students of the junior school, which I do in few of my sessions, that you have to, safety means the same thing to me as well as to you, as well as to a toddler. But what we need to distinguish is vocabulary we are using to explain the meaning of safety, dignity to all of you. It has to change. It can't be the same vocabulary for all. Through the safe side, we're working on such aspects that, we're bringing difference to lives. Litigation is one thing that I'm offering in the emergency room, as I said. However, as a preventive healthcare, we want to make people aware. We want shifts in the law. We want shifts in the policies, internal policies of the companies. We want companies and we want institutions to be compliant of the laws. We want institutions to actually care, not just on the paper or on the check boxes. We want institutions to actually knit safety in their culture, that we truly care. So that is where the safe side steps in.
I feel like the thing that children really worry about their dignity and their actual status at school is really important, especially in middle and high school.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this is something which is really overlooked at. So I think the safe side is doing some really good work.
Thank you. In fact, as you mentioned, the particular age groups, those age groups are so tender because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot that you're being taught at home. There's a lot of exposure you're getting in school, a lot of exposure you're getting in your peers. So a lot of it going in that mind also. So we need to help them out, do a little bit of hand holding, understanding that they're still not adults. So we need to understand that some hand holding needs to be offered in terms of making them understand their rights and making them understand their boundaries as well, because when it comes rights, there also come responsibilities. So we need to make them understand their responsibilities towards the other, because if you feel safe, you offer that level of safety to your peers also. So that is how a safe ecosystem grows, that builds.
That's a very sensitive age because they tend to absorb more and reflect.
Yes.
Right. So, Mom, through your work on real world cases and issues, you've seen safety challenges up close. What has your experience taught you about how safety truly impacts students, and how do you see the concept of safety evolving today?
Okay, so the impact of safety, we'll try to study it both, we'll try to discuss it both negatively and positively. So, the impact of safety, visible impact of safety not being there. Visible impact is one complaint coming to the child protection committee or the internal committee of an institution. Visible impact is that the most visible one, I would say. However, some invisible things that one institution as a from the point of care can actually identify as something for from a school's perspective. You notice that a student's attendance is dropping. You notice that they're skipping classes. They are restricting their peers, their circle. Why? Because they feel safer in a smaller space. So they shrink themselves. They shrink their circles to feel safe within one space, that I'm not going to interact with a lot of people. Maybe that person is facing some kind of bullying. Maybe that person is facing some kind of social exclusion. So maybe some kind of activity happening in school which is disturbing the child's mental health. So those are some things. In fact, I would like to I was reading about this theory called the attention residue theory. I was reading about it last week, in fact. So it was coined by an organizational psychologist. So what I read in that was, it's a very common phenomena for that matter. So when I say the attention residue theory, we understand that we have one common pool of attention that we have. One thing that happens wrong in our school or in our life, let's say in school, something is happening that is bothering me. And when I'm on to the next thing, that residue of that distraction remains in my head. Now, when I'm doing the next thing, I'm not able to focus on that fully because my mind is already somewhere else. It's stressed. I'm already under the stress of something else that had happened few minutes or hours ago, and that residue remains with me in the next thing I am on to. So, which means that it's my focus is reducing. My focus is consistently coming down, because one thing, the residue of the first thing remains with me while I do the another. So that's why I was saying the impact. Now we see the impact when a student is in school. Suppose something is happening, we see attendance drops, we see reduced participation in activities for that matter. We see peer groups shrinking yourself to make yourself feel safe in a smaller bubble, and that's a human response. We shouldn't. That cannot be something. Victim blaming is the worst thing to do at this point of time, and people often, they tag it as a phase, they tag it as a thing that a person is going through, or maybe lack of motivation, that the student is lacking motivation. No, whereas what is actually happening in the student's life is the underlying effect of the lack of safety of the institution, lack of provision of the institution, that you should be taking care of the child more, you should be counseling the child, you should have your committees, there should be proper channel that the student is aware of, that this is where you need to go, so that those impacts which are visible, maybe sometimes invisible also, the patterns can be recognized by the institution. When we have a designated committee for this, when we have a committee, they need to target the students, and then they need to recognize the patterns, what is happening, what is shifting in a student's life. Maybe the teachers can be responsible, teachers can be hand in hand with the counselor, they can be reporting some concerns about some students, that this is what we've been noticing. this is a shift in the behavior or in the pattern of a student. So this can be observed, that student can be reached out to by the counselor, and they can be spoken to that what is happening. Now what we're doing here is we're preventing the larger damage. We're preventing the matter from being actually the child taking some step to actually raise a complaint, or do any such thing that may harm the child, the family, the institution's reputation for that matter. So when the damage is happening, it's happening to everybody. It's not happening to just the students, just the parents, just the institution. It's a collective damage. If we're able to navigate through the visible or invisible pattern shifts in the students' behavior, we're able to find out things better. We're able to find out the root causes first before any damage actually happens. So we can prevent it rather than protect it later or redress it later. So we can protect it. Now, on the positive side of things. On the positive side of things, if I would say, how does safety impact a student's life? Suppose I'm in school, I am feeling safe, I'm able to focus on the things that matter to me, be it academics, be it sport, be it something creative. So the institution's creative or academic output or the potential, that also increases when the student is able to focus. So I can perform better, I can focus on things better, I can grow myself internally, externally, I can actually think of the things that are out of the box for me, because there are no underlying things that are remaining in my head from a past incident or some series of incidents. Because honestly, when all this happens, as observed by me in courts also, this is not one isolated incident. The lack of safety does not hit me as a one isolated incident, rather it will be a series. Usually it won't be a huge incident that would happen to you suddenly. There would be small cues to it that you're able to identify earlier, that you're able to raise a voice against. So having that spirit, having that courage to actually speak up against it at the very initial stage, to draw your boundary right, that this is my boundary, this does not get crossed. That kind of courage that we need to imbibe in our students, to have make them lead a positive student life in school also. So that is what matters, and these are some things that can be some pattern changes that can be recognized by schools at a smaller level to prevent the larger damage.
I agree. I think all of these topics connect with each other, and sometimes this standing up phase also just is termed as rebellious phase for
Yes.
students.
So that's what we call it. We call it a phase. We call it that no, the student ये focus नहीं कर पा रहा या कर पा रही. They're not able. They're not motivated enough. They're going through a phase. They will improve. They talk to their students. No, what if try to look at it from a point of view that what if the student is actually facing an issue within the school which is relating to his or her emotional, physical, psychological safety. So why don't we address that first? If we're addressing that first, then maybe that underlying phenomena or the residue of attention that is not there. In that case, the students able to fully focus on what they actually walked into school for. They walked into school for a purpose, so they're able to achieve that purpose if you're able to provide them with safety in the institution.
Your campaign highlights the idea of freedom to focus. So, what does this concept mean in practice, and why is it so important in a student's journey?
So, freedom to focus is a very central point of our campaign. It's not a slogan, I rather call it a claim. It's a claim that we're making. It's the freedom to focus. I want to feel free. I want to feel free to focus on the things that I'm here for, my purpose, my agenda, my aspirations, my career that I wish to unlock. So, one thing that we need to understand before this, people often confuse freedom versus safety. If you're concerned about safety a lot, then you won't have the freedom. No, rather you need to look at safety as a prerequisite of freedom. In order to be free, you need to be made to feel safe. So that is the point that we're emphasizing on. Don't confuse that safety will restrict your freedom. No, safety is rather a prerequisite of freedom. If I'm feeling safe enough to have a voice here in front of you both, in when I feel safe enough, I'm feeling safe enough, then only I'll be able to be free to express my views on it. When I'm feeling safe in a classroom to express, to say, to actually say whether I do not feel like being in the class due to some XYZ genuine reason. I do mention genuine here because we don't want the law or the provisions or the rules for that matter to be exploited. So when for a genuine reason I'm able to express that this is the problem I'm going through, I'm able to say that I'm not feeling safe at this point of time, that is where I feel free. I feel free that this baggage of my head, this load that was there in my head, that has been load shared with someone trusted in my school. Now when that happens, the bandwidth is a very important term here. I have a bandwidth, and my bandwidth becomes free to actually focus on what I want to do. So if we look at it in a way that safety will only, if it's a given, if safety is a given, you will naturally soar. The safe side, actually, we have a tagline. We work under the tagline of "It's safe to soar." What we actually mean by that is that when it's safe, we call it the safe side. When it's safe, when there's freedom to focus, it's safe to soar. We want students or the people who are walking into these institutions, we want them to feel that it is safe to soar. You don't worry, the law is there to protect you. The institutions are compliant, because rest assured, the safe side is here. Other institutions are here. We partner with so many institutions. We are there, and the law is there for you. So it is safe for you to soar. You soar, you focus on things that matter. We are advocating for you for the freedom to focus. So when all of that is a given, you will be able to soar. So you focus on things that matter. So the freedom to focus is precisely that. That safety is a prerequisite. It's when safety is a given, then in that case, you're able to soar. So that is a simple equation that we have.
I think this courage to speak up itself is really underlying.
Right,
It's a very
it is.
underlying problem. So, ma'am, are there any specific laws or legal framework in India designed to protect students within schools, and how do these frameworks operate in practice?
Absolutely. Why not? We have so many laws on paper. We have, in fact, I wouldn't disregard the fact that there are institutions which are compliant for that matter. They truly care also. However, the laws, if I was to enlist that, what are the laws for students in institutions? I'll just say, for in institutions, what are the laws? So, if we talk about school students, we have the POCSO Act, which is the Parent Act. We have and from the POCSO Act, we come to the POCSO rules of 2020, also the Act. And then we have the CBSE guidelines, as I said. Then we have the NCPCR guidelines for schools, the National Commission for Protection of Child Right guidelines. So when I take all these big names that, a student may get a little scared of, that, oh, these are some laws existing on books that are being enacted by the parliament. All these are happening, or maybe by bodies. So when these are happening, simpler things are given in that. For example, having a child protection committee, having a POCSO committee, having a committee in your school to redress the problems of a student from the very beginning level, when they actually do not even convert into a complaint, rather from the beginning stage itself. So that is there. Or maybe say having CCTVs in school. When you see your CCTVs in school at remote points, at points where, be it entry or exit of a classroom, or at every point of time, at every point in your school, wherever you see a CCTV, it's not something that a school is doing, out of nowhere. It's given in a law. It's given in a law that is protecting you, that is protecting your interests. So the CCTVs, for that matter, or for that matter, you will notice that there are support persons in your school. There's a mandatory verification, police verification, that is mandated for these support persons, that you run a background check on your support persons, on your teaching or non-teaching staff. So these are some laws that exist for the protection of students. Then if we now, as a student, you move to university, then similar things you have under the UGC guidelines. Then you move to a workplace, then you have the POSH Act. So similarly, there are sufficient laws. What I personally feel lacks is the cultural shift and the importance that you grant to safety within an institution and its impact, be it good or be it bad. You're undermining the very impact of safety on a person involved in an institution.
As students, what role can we play in contributing to safer environments around us? And finally, what would be your one last message to every student listening today?
Okay. Coming to that part, which I believe is my favorite, because if there's one thing that I could leave you students with today, one takeaway from this session would be that know your safety architecture, know the architecture of your institution, know the safety architecture in the sense that know the people who are involved in making these policies, the people who sit at those positions in those committees, that these are the people that you need to approach, whether your school or your institution. In future also, you'll be moving to spaces, and you just need to find out whether they are compliant, and if they're compliant, what is the architecture, how has it been structured, that whom do I need to go to if something happens. Being aware and then making other people around you aware carries so much power, carries so much potential within it. The only psychological fact in your head that happens is that I'm aware that if something wrong is happening, I have this XYZ place to go to. That by itself, that knowledge of that very fact helps you to create a boundary, that this is my boundary, because the moment the boundary is crossed, you know the forum that you have to go to. So I would just urge upon all students to actually be aware of the safety infrastructure of their institutions. Be aware of what is happening around you, know your boundaries. These are some general takeaways. However, knowledge is power, as we say. Knowledge is power. Being aware is something that will take you a longer way, because being aware will only mean that you know how to exercise your right. Not only are you aware of your right, you know how to exercise your right. So as I said, we don't want to be in the emergency room through litigation or the complaint system. We rather want to be in the preventive healthcare, where the safe side is really creating a voice about. We want to be in the preventive healthcare of giving safety enough importance from the institutions end, and from the students end, knowing your rights, knowing the right places and the people that you have to go through, the given mechanism that has been designated by your school, by your institution. And then one very important thing, as a precaution, exercise it judiciously. Do not misuse the law, do not misuse the provisions, because you need to just understand this simple aspect, that the kind of exercise, be it a misuse or be it a proper use of a remedy, the kind of use you're making is going to impact the next person who's actually going to have a concern, who's going to have a genuine concern. So exercise your right responsibly. Do not misuse the law, do not misuse the rule that your school is, the provision that your school is giving to you. Maybe it a committee, be it raising a voice, do not misuse it. However, be aware of it and use it very judiciously and very genuinely, for that matter. So that will be my one takeaway to students, that be aware of what is happening around you, and be aware of the committees that are there around you, be aware of the law. So just be aware, for that matter, because it brings you